Welcome to this presentation on products for aviation weather hazards. And the first product that we're going to talk about is the Sigmet. Sigmet stands for Significant Meteorological Information. And generally this is weather information of hazardous nature for pilots flying aircraft, typically en route. And this is for all operators, meaning that it's particularly hazardous weather. So these are really bad things that pilots should avoid. Here are the criteria for SIGMETs. The criteria, anytime you see the word severe, that's your SIGMET. So severe or greater turbulence, severe icing, also other phenomena such as widespread sand or dust storms. And then also they'll put out SIGMETs for volcanic ash and also tropical cyclones. Internationally, and every place else in the world, they'll put out SIGMETs for thunderstorms. And specifically thunderstorms that are obscured, embedded, that are widespread. There's a technical definition for widespread. Also for squall lines, and then only isolated severe thunderstorms. Here in the United States, the 48 contiguous United States, they don't put out SIGMETs for thunderstorms. We have a separate SIGMET called a convective SIGMET. We'll talk about that in another PowerPoint. So, do they put SIGMETs out for isolated or very small areas of hazardous weather? Typically not. It needs to be over a larger area, and that large area is 3,000 square miles. So 3,000 square miles, we talked about this in class, that's about a 50 by 50 nautical mile box. And in the SIGMETs, everything is with reference to MSL heights, mean sea level. However, if you see CIG or AGL, that takes precedence. And then all altitudes above 18,000 feet are flight levels. And they outline areas using high altitude VORs, and there's a map that you can get from Aviation Weather Services and also your Aeronautical Information Manual that has all of the high altitude VORs. This is what the map looks like, and you can use that. Some people plot this, or some people actually print this out and use it as a plotting guide, but at Aviation Weather Services online, they will show you the plot. In other words, they'll show you the area that's affected. International SIGMETs and also SIGMETs over the oceans use latitude and longitude, with latitude coming first in degrees and whole minutes, without the little symbols denoting minutes and degrees. And then west comes next, and that's also in degrees and whole minutes. So they use the same contractions in METARs, or in SIGMETs that they use in METARs, and any other contractions have to be approved by ICAO. SIGMETs can be amended, and they can also be corrected. Typically you'll see that in the first line of the product if it has been amended or corrected. And then they'll tell you why it was amended or corrected in the last line of the SIGMET. SIGMETs come out from meteorological watch offices worldwide. And each country, or each flight information region, FIR, has a Met Watch office, a MWO. Here in the United States, since we have a large country, we have several Met Watch offices. The main one is located in Kansas City, Missouri, and that's the Aviation Weather Center. People there are watching the weather across their area of responsibility, which would be the lower 48 United States. And they're looking for hazardous weather. When hazardous weather occurs, they'll put out a SIGMET. There are other Met Watch offices in the United States, and these are up in Alaska. It's the Alaskan Aviation Weather Unit. And also in Hawaii is the Weather Forecast Office. They are monitoring the weather across their region and putting out SIGMETs as warranted. So here in the United States, continental United States, or CONUS, the Aviation Weather Center is monitoring, looking for hazardous weather. And when the SIGMET criteria has been met, if there's severe turbulence, severe icing, sandstorms, dust storms, volcanic ash, they'll issue a SIGMET, and the SIGMET has or is lettered November through Yankee. In other words, they'll use one letter to identify that hazard. And they don't use Sierra and Tango, and we'll talk about why they don't use those later. But it's issued for 6 regions, and those 6 regions are the same regions that you saw in the area forecast. And there's your regions. So if there, for example, is severe turbulence over the North Dakota, it'll be issued for the Chicago area, and it'll be given a letter November for the first occurrence of that. So they also have, the Aviation Weather Center also issues SIGMETs for not only just the continental United States, but also over the oceans. And they do that for the New York Oceanic Flight Information Region, for Houston, for Miami, and also for San Juan. And they also use the same lettering convention, November through Yankee, excluding Sierra and Tango. Here are the other oceanic flight information regions. These include thunderstorms. Remember, we said that over the continental United States, they don't include thunderstorms. And the Aviation Weather Center also issues SIGMETs for the Oakland Oceanic Flight Information Region. Now, out in the Pacific, instead of using November through Yankee, they use Alpha through Hotel. And there is the map or the area of the Oakland Oceanic Flight Information Region. Once again, they include thunderstorms in their SIGMETs. And then in Honolulu, the Met Watch office there also issues SIGMETs for the Oakland Oceanic Flight Information Region. They use November through Zulu for their lettering, and the Alaskan Aviation Weather Unit up in Anchorage issues SIGMETs for the Anchorage Flight Information Region, and they use India through Mike, the letters India through Mike, for their SIGMETs. There's a plot of the Anchorage FIR and then also the Oakland Oceanic FIR, and the SIGMET region that Honolulu is issuing the SIGMETs for. So, SIGMETs. SIGMETs are non-scheduled. Of course, hazardous weather is not scheduled, so when it happens, they'll put one out. And the first time it comes out, if it is extremely important and it just happened, they'll issue it as an urgent SIGMET, a UWS. WS is the abbreviation for SIGMET. U indicates urgent. So the first one comes out, it'll be urgent SIGMET WS, November 1. And then if that phenomena moves into another region, like if it moves from the Salt Lake region into the Chicago region, as it goes from Montana to North Dakota, it'll retain its alphabetic designator. In other words, if they called it November 1, it'll still be November when it moves into Chicago. But they may, if the weather phenomena continues on for a long period of time, they'll keep renumbering it. It'll retain November, but it'll be November 1, November 2, November 3, if it lasts for an extended period of time. They renumber all of the SIGMETs starting at 0Z. And SIGMETs are valid for 6 hours if they're for volcanic ash or tropical cyclones. They'll also put an outlook for those types of phenomena, outlook out to 12 hours. And of course, it's canceled when it's no longer occurring or expected to occur. All other SIGMETs are shorter. They're only a 4-hour forecast, and they're reissued every 4 hours if the criteria is met, and canceled when they're no longer occurring. They will amend and update SIGMETs as necessary, and New SIGMETs if there is a November already occurring, for example, for severe turbulence over Montana. And then there is a new area of severe icing over North Dakota, or actually over Montana. Then they will give it a new letter. They will call it, Oscar. O comes after N, so they'll call it Oscar. But the turbulence will continue to be called November. The icing will be called Oscar. And if it extends over 4 hours, they'll give it a new number. And they'll issue it as November 2 for the turbulence and Oscar 2 for the icing. So your SIGMET contains a lot of information. It has what kind of phenomena, and its description talks about whether it's observed or forecasted. They mention if it's moving and its altitude. If it's thunderstorms, they'll tell you about the heights and also how it's changing in intensity. And they will give you an outlook for only volcanic ash and also tropical cyclones. So here's an example. This one's straight out of your book. This is for the San Francisco region, and it's an urgent SIGMET. Came out on the 10th day at 1:30 Zulu. And since this is an urgent one, that means it's the first one for this series, so they're going to call it SIGMET Romeo 1. Romeo 1. And it's valid until the 10th day at 5:30 Zulu. It's for Oregon and Washington. They outline the area with high altitude VOR, so this is from Seattle to Portland to Eugene to Seattle. They say occasional moderate or greater clear air turbulence between flight level 280 and flight level 350 expected due to the jet stream. Conditions beginning after 2 Zulu and continuing beyond 5:30 Zulu and spreading over central Idaho by 4 Zulu. And this one came straight out of your book, so they kind of break it down and show you each area of the SIGMET. Here's another one, and this one is for the Boston region, and it looks like it's Yankee. So they've got several SIGMETs going on at this time. Yankee is kind of towards the end of the alphabet. And this is just a SIGMET, so this has probably been going on for a while. It was issued on the 10th day at 15:15 Zulu. And it says it's SIGMET Yankee 1, so this is the first one for this type of weather phenomena. And it's valid until the 10th day at 19:15 Zulu. Notice that this is a 4-hour forecast. It goes from 15:15 to 19:15. Covers the area of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and the coastal waters. And it goes from 30 miles north of Nantucket to 140 south of Nantucket to 30 south of SIE to SAX to 30 north of Nantucket. And they say there's occasional severe turbulence between 16,000 and flight level 220, and that was reported by aircraft. And they think that it's going to continue on beyond 19:15 Zulu. So in other words, it'll probably last more than 4 hours. Here's another one. This is for the Boston region, and it's November. So this is probably the first one in the series. And it occurred on the 10th day at 1600 Zulu. That's when it was issued. And so it's a 4-hour forecast. So it goes until 20 Zulu, November 1. And it's for West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And the SIGMET is from 60 south of JST, I think that's Johnstown, to Salisbury, to Elizabethtown, to CAE, and to 40 west of ODF, to 60 south of Johnstown. Occasional severe turbulence below 10,000 reported by aircraft, and they think it's going to continue beyond 20 Zulu. And here's another one. You can read through this one, but this one's for the Miami region, and it looks like this one also is for turbulence at low altitudes. And then for that particular day, this is a day back in 2008, these are the areas where there was turbulence. These SIGMETs are the ones that I just plotted, or just read, and these are plotted out at the Aviation Weather Center, trying to visualize all these high altitude VORs is kind of difficult. If you have a plotting chart, it's great, but it's nice to go to the Aviation Weather Center, and they will always plot the SIGMETs in red. The green is airmets, but the SIGMETs are red, and they're red for a particular region. Remember, SIGMETs are hazardous, very hazardous weather, where you have severe turbulence, severe icing, or other hazards. This is an international SIGMET. This one is over the Oakland Oceanic Flight Information Region. This one came out of your book, also gives you an example of international SIGMETs. But it came out on the 10th day at 4:10 Zulu, and they say this is the second one in a series. It's for the Oakland Oceanic Flight Information Region. That's what KZOA is. And it's Sigmet Tango 2, valid for the first day at 4:10 Zulu to the first day at 8 Zulu. So it's about a 4-hour forecast. Came out from PHFO, and that is the Honolulu Forecast Office. So it says it's for the Oakland Oceanic Flight Information Region. They say there's frequent thunderstorms observed and forecast within a 200 nautical mile width or box of these latitude and longitude points. So the first one is a point that is 30 degrees and 6 minutes north and 140 degrees and 12 minutes west. The second point is 20 degrees and 12 minutes north and 150 degrees and 16 minutes west. So what they say is the tops are up to 40,000 feet, and they're moving west at 10 knots, and also it's weakening. So you plot those 2 points, you draw a line, and then a box go either 200 miles within that line. This is what it was. This is straight out of your book, and they describe the SIGMET, the international SIGMET. That's all I have for you on SIGMETs.